Whenever.
You are ready.
You're rolling. All right. Ready? Here we go. We're here at Jazz Live San Diego with Evan Perri of the Hot Club of Detroit. Welcome to Jazz Live San Diego.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So let's start off by telling us the members of the band that are with us tonight.
Okay, well, we have myself, Evan Perri. I play lead guitar in the band. And we have Julian Labro. He is our chromatic button accordionist. And we have Ivan Pena playing rhythm guitar. And on the bass, we have Jordan Shug.
So this is the first show of a 5-stop tour, just landed in San Diego. Tell us about this little tour that you're doing.
Well, it's been a couple years since we've been out to California, and just not for any reason at all other than just that's the way the cards fall sometimes. We've been doing a lot of East Coast stuff and a lot of Midwest stuff closer to our hometown. And we're just happy to be back out here. Last time we were out this way, we had a really great run, and we're looking forward to having another.
Excellent. Well, tonight's lineup features 2 guitars, bass, and an accordion. No drummer. So I have a feeling that's a typical lineup for gypsy jazz. Can you give us a little primer on gypsy jazz? Just tell us what it is.
Oh, well, it's real tough to do it in a short fashion, but I guess it's a style of music that was pioneered by a gypsy guitarist named Django Reinhardt. Django Reinhardt made his fame in a band called the Quintet of the Hot Club of France, alongside violinist Stefan Grappelli. They were big superstars for years, and their instrumentation was very much like our group and a lot of other gypsy jazz groups that you see performing around town. No drums. The difference with our band is that instead of a violin, we put an accordion in there. Even though an accordion is not completely uncommon for this music, Django Reinhardt actually performed lots with accordion players. But it's just the path we chose to go down.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said that Django Reinhardt was the inventor of this type of music. What came before it, and what was he doing before he played this? What was the kind of foundations of that?
Well, prior to Django Reinhardt, I guess you could say, discovering jazz, he spent a lot of his time, as many other musicians in France did, in Paris at that time, which was backing up singers and playing musette music in the cafes and on the streets. But the story goes, as more and more American service members were stationed in France and throughout Europe, Django had gotten his hands on some records. 2 notable ones being Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington, which he claimed to be his heroes. So he literally just took what he heard off the records and transformed them onto his guitar that he had. And there's really nothing gypsy about gypsy jazz. That's kind of a made-up term, and a term that I don't really agree with at all, because if you listen to Django Reinhardt, he was a straight-ahead jazz guitar player. There wasn't really any gypsy to his playing at all, and he didn't play almost any gypsy repertoire also. So really, he's a jazz guitar player. The term gypsy jazz developed years after his death, and the following that he had created, he became almost like a high priest to the gypsies, and his music was their church music in a sense. And that's where the term gypsy jazz started to originate.
Well, the Hot Club of Detroit was formed in 2003 by yourself, I guess among others, while you were at Wayne State University. How did you come to gypsy jazz and to know this type of music? Well,
I was actually studying jazz guitar at a college in Minneapolis under a teacher named Mike Elliott. And we covered so many aspects of jazz, and one of the aspects we covered was swing guitar. And one day in class he had said, "Hey, have you ever heard of the 2-fingered gypsy that was better than anybody?" And I said, "What? 2-fingered gypsy? Is this a joke?" So I went to the record store and found a Django Reinhardt Greatest Hits album, like in a bargain bin type thing, and I bought it, put it in the CD player in my car on the outside of the store. I was like, "Whoa, this is really hip, man. This is really cool. Like, I've never heard anything like this." And from then on, I was just completely hooked. And I brought this knowledge back with me when I moved back to Detroit to study at Wayne State. And I had a great professor there by the name of Matt Michaels, who encouraged my interest in this music and allowed me to form a jazz combo at the college that was a gypsy jazz combo. So I basically just scoured the university for musicians who could hang with this stuff, and hence became the Hot Club of Detroit. We were practicing in the basement, and and our teachers would get us some gigs around town, and it wasn't long before we had some pretty good notoriety. So that's how it all kind of formed together. And then I met Julian at Wayne State, and we've had people come and leave the band over the years. People get married, they have kids, da-da-da, you know, just like any band. And that's my thing, is I wanted to have a band, not like, you know, some jazz soloist backed by whoever else, you know what I mean? Like so much of jazz is. And I always grew up playing rock and roll and stuff, and I was always in bands and loved working with the same people for extended periods of time, and that's what I wanted to keep happening with this music.
Oh, thank you for adjusting that. Well, so you just mentioned that this style of jazz is challenging, that you were trying to find people that could hang with it. What are some of the particular challenges or differences of playing this style of jazz than others?
Well, for one, as a guitar player, to play this music, you really need to have a gypsy guitar. I'll just pause for a second.
Let's ask that question again, okay?
Mm-hmm. Still rolling?
Yeah.
Thanks. So, Evan, you just mentioned that playing gypsy jazz is something that might be a challenge, that you were looking for musicians that would hang with this music. What are the particular challenges of playing this genre of jazz?
For me, the hardest thing was learning the technique to play a gypsy guitar, which is very unlike your normal American dreadnought style guitar. It's not like flat picking or bluegrass when you're mainly playing in the first 3 or 4 positions on the guitar. You're playing all over every fret of the instrument, and these guitars are big, they have high action, the strings are heavy, and it's extremely physically demanding. It took me years to where I was able to play 3 sets of this music in one night without my arm falling off. That was the biggest challenge for me, and the thing about the chord voicings and the arpeggios and the way you finger things are all very unique to this style. I hate using the term very unique. I don't think that's proper English. It's just unique. And a lot of people say, well, you know, why do I play this arpeggio this way with this fingering when I can do it this way? Because it doesn't sound the same. And literally every note, where you place it on what string on the guitar will give you a particular timbre to the instrument. And that, coupled with this right hand, which people refer to as gypsy picking, it's a whole nother picking style that you have to do to get the right sound. If I could explain it quickly, it's in bluegrass you have flat picking, so you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. This is with the right hand while you're picking. In gypsy jazz, there's almost none of that. There's a lot of what you would call a rest stroke, like in classical music, where you hit the string and you rest the pick onto the next string, and then you continue through in the same direction. So instead of going down, up across the strings, you go down, 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 you know? And then when you come backwards, it's all downstrokes instead of coming backwards. So if you can imagine going all the way down with downstrokes and then coming backwards with upstrokes, it can be very challenging and very frustrating too. And you'll be like, why can't I just alternate pick this, you know? But really, it will not sound right. It will not sound correct. And that's the struggle that a lot of people and myself had for many years. And some of it I've abandoned over the years just because, like, I'm getting older now and I'm just kind of too lazy for it all. But and plus I've been playing electric a lot the past year or so kind of getting into some other things. But those were the main challenges of actually playing gypsy jazz.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your music and the Hot Club of Detroit. Your most recent work was 2012's Junction, which continued a move to expand the genre that seemed to start from the very beginning of the group with your 2006 debut, Hot Club of Detroit, where you applied some of the gypsy jazz tenets to tunes that already had other contexts, like straight ahead jazz. You did a Wes Montgomery tune, Brazilian, you did a Joe Beam tune, and even did some screen music, like the Godfather's theme. When you were starting out, did you know that there were particular parts of other music or your musical background that you wanted to try to bring in or try to mold gypsy jazz in a certain way?
It wasn't a conscious thought. It was kind of just the personalities of everyone, I think, that was in the band. And we all had so many different influences, mine, of course, being heavily guitar influenced and others being elsewhere. You know, I didn't want to abandon a lot of the music that I grew up loving, and guys like Wes Montgomery, you know, guys like Miles Davis or Sonny Rollins. And to me, jazz can be played in any type of medium, any type of instrumentation, you know, any instrument. You know, people say jazz accordion, like, that's not allowed, you know what I mean? Well, it is, and you can play jazz on the kazoo if you can do it right. But for me, I just, you know, didn't want to, the problems I was seeing with gypsy jazz is that everyone was playing the same stuff over and over again. And everyone's coming out with new albums, and they're all the same tunes, you know? And a lot of it was what Django had played and some of his predecessors had played over the years. And I didn't want to follow that. I wanted to, you know, do something different. And I wasn't worried about any backlash. I could care less what anyone else thought. You know, I really just wanted to do it because this is what we enjoy. And that's why you play music, is to enjoy it, not to, you know, impress someone else in the field or whatever. So, you know, it was not a far stretch for us to play a tune like The Godfather or you know, to take a Chopin piece like we did on one of our records and arrange that for our instrumentation.
Mm-hmm. And so you really did expand it on Junction with saxophone and vocals. Cyril Amy on that. She's got a great new disc out too herself, where she's exploring some of that. I'm sure there's directions that you feel like you probably want to go with this music, or ideas. Can you give us just an idea of where you see or what you're thinking about in the future for the band and where you're going?
In terms of most recently, I guess you could say our album Junction best represents what we're doing today, because a lot of us kind of at the same time we're getting more heavily into the modern jazz New York scene, which you would bring up guys like John Zorn or Mark Ribot on guitar and things of that nature, which I love all that music. And when we added saxophone player John Arabigan to play with us, it really pushed us up to a new level that we weren't expecting at first, you know, and then just kind of ran with it, you know. Some of the stuff you'll hear at the show tonight, you know, you'll hear some of the avant-garde, little bit slightly free jazz style, and I'm really getting into that a lot more. And in the future, I'd like to incorporate more like maybe electronics and stuff, and maybe some effects and effects not just on the guitar but on the accordion. And you know, me and Julian and I have been chatting about what we want to do for the next record for some time now, and that's definitely one of the things that keeps coming up is more of a, I guess for lack of a better term, electronic approach.
Do you? I take it from our discussion today that you really aren't thinking about what your current audience or the audience for gypsy jazz is looking for in gypsy jazz records, because as you mentioned, it seems like gypsy jazz is kind of what swing was maybe 10 years ago, and there was a big resurgence in swing bands.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be an issue for you if you go in a direction that you're pursuing.
Because you gotta do what you do. You gotta be yourself, you know, especially artistically. If you just keep trying to please everyone else, you'll never grow personally. I think as a musician, I think that's how I've grown over the years, was continuing to be myself. And I mean, we get a lot of people after our shows that say, you know, I wasn't expecting that, but it was great, you know. So hopefully we're turning some people on to some new ideas, some new different sounds that you can do with this music.
Where can folks find out more about your band and make connections with you?
Well, we have a website. It's hotclubofdetroit.com, and you can buy our CDs at virtually every online retailer. I mean, there's no really, you know, Barnes and Nobles or Tower Records type things around anymore, but they used to be there. Mm-hmm. If those are still around, you might be able to find one later on. But, you know, iTunes and our website. You can go to our record label's website, macavenuerecords.com, and or just do a search, Google search on our name, and a million things will come up.
And do you interact with your fans via social media?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're on Facebook and all that stuff. And, you know, if you go to our website, you can email me directly through the website, and I get all sorts of questions from people from all over the world, and it's great. I enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, Evan, thank you so much for being here at Jazz Live San Diego and chatting with us, and best of luck on your West Coast tour.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Cool, I'll make that edit. Let's get an ID from you real quick while we have it in front of the
Okay.
microphone. Putting the accordion through like a fuzz box or
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Ottawa,
Yeah, Ottawa.
whammy pedal, whatever,
Whole
man.
thing. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with those guys in Bonorama.
No.
They, 4 trombones up front. Used to be a tuba for bass.
Uh-huh.
Rock